High employee turnover is costing me a lot of money and lost training hours. What are some other Canadian companies to do to retain employees? By Duncan Hall. In this report, we'll focus on the cost of an employer to their bottom line when they lose a new hire and what factors will be needed to consider when a new employee is onboarded. We will also look at the factors that encourage employees to leave the new role, such as leadership, personal goals, and benefits. Achievement opportunities, as well as other factors. We'll also look at Canadian companies and what they're starting to do to evolve and retain to keep their new hires and current employees in the role. And what can we go through and do and improve on benefit packages to provide even more to employees. The cost of losing a new hire factors on many things. So when we go through and we looked at a lot of the different reports that we went through and a lot of the websites that we went through and chatted for this information here, we really learned that a lot more employees are looking for a lot more benefits when they actually start a new job. Gone are the days where they'll stay with a company for over 10 years. Now most employees are still looking for new work, even when they have a new or current job, to go through and make sure that they are getting the best out of their working years. One of the main things that I know that was in the past was a lot of people were staying at a role for 10 plus years, but with the new generation coming out right now, a lot of them are going through and looking at how they can go through and tailor work towards them. So going through and looking at this, like I said, gone are the days of them just going through and just expecting a raise every year, where it's about 20 cents on the dollar. Now they're looking for something that's a little bit more meaningful each year by looking at different benefits, an actual raise, change in lifestyle. So they need to go through and they need to see something that is better for them every single day. While conducting some research into this topic, I found a source that said 3/4 of people interviewed are actually actively looking for a new job. And that 35% more of them would switch to a new role if recruited by a different company. Those are huge numbers when we go through and look at what the average person was doing even 15, 20 years ago, where they would stay with an employer no matter what kind of packages they were getting there because it was what they were used to. So now we're going through and seeing a massive change in that. In the Radisson report that we went through, we were focusing on well-trade performing employees for about having them there for about 3 years, over 2 years, and it saved the company about $1.3 million in retraining and onboarding costs. That definitely goes through and that has a bunch of different factors along with it. So if you go through and you look at an employee making $55,000 in a year, you're looking to probably go through and lose at least $75,000 to retain that same and rehire that same position. You look at going through loss of production when the role is vacant, having to promote the job in the marketplace, such as on LinkedIn or Indeed. Reviewing resumes and screening applicants is always a huge cost and a time factor for the upper management, and then onboarding and training the new hire. And going through, and one of the main things that happens in most people when they start a new role is they will go through and make some mistakes because either they weren't trained properly or you try to go through and jump in with both legs and sometimes you do fail a little bit. One of the main things that really has changed over the last little while when going through and getting new hires is people have the ability to go through and understand and learn a little bit more about your company before they even come on. They can go through and look at things like Glassdoor and Google My Business, where they can go through and find out a little bit more information about the day-to-day kind of what goes on in a job place before actually going through and even sending in a resume. Now, this can hurt and this can go through and help an employer, or if you have a really good response on Glassdoor or Google My Business, you can get a bunch of very high-end employers coming to go through and knocking on your door to be part of that role. However, the same thing can be said if you have a lot of negative reviews from past employees and things that might not always necessarily be true. They can go through and they can definitely have a negative connotation on the type of people that are going to be applying for the role and wanting to come work for your company. So you always have to go through and make sure that even if your employer is leaving, or you have an employee that is leaving, good or bad terms, you make sure that you do the best you can to wish them well on their way. One of the things that Canadian companies can really do to start retaining its employees a little bit more is by really looking holistically at the whole kind of structure and kind of packaging that you do go through and get for the role. So you go through and you start looking at more companies are actually providing a little bit more vacation time. Instead of the standard 2 weeks, you're going through and starting looking at 3 weeks for a brand new hire. This goes through and allows a little bit more of a work-life balance for people, and a new employee is very well receptive to going through and getting that little bit extra more time off. The other thing is looking at paid sick days and mental health days. Gone are the days of not having the conversation on mental health any longer. So you go through and you have an employee that might be having mental anguish, might be having any sort of issues, my apology, anything that might be going on at home. You have the ability to go through and set them up for success and not make them feel like they have to take an unpaid day by going through and providing sick days and mental health days. These little small things do go a long way in going through and helping the satisfaction of the overall worker. One of the other things is a major factor when somebody is coming on onboarding for a brand new role, is the type of leadership you're going to go through and get from upper management that way. If you have somebody coming in that needs a little bit more nurturing and a little bit more just hand holding essentially at the end of the day. If you have somebody who's a transformative leader, you're going to go through and get that support and get that understanding, versus if you go through and you have somebody that's a transactional leader and will treat you essentially as you need this task done and you need to get it done now. You're going to have a lot of hard feelings and a lot of people not necessarily want to do their best work and already start looking for a new role. If you go through and have a transformative leader that will take that little bit of time, go through and set you up for success, answer those questions, and go through and put you on the right guiding path, you're nine times out of 10 you're going to see somebody that does want to stay at the company a little bit longer, as well as go through and make sure that they're setting you up for success because you've set them up for success. When you go through and you have a transactional leader, you will have people that just come Monday through Friday, do the role, check in, check out, and don't want to do anything above and beyond. So when you go through and you have a transitional leader, you'll go through and you'll get a lot more out of your employee. One of the new things as well that a lot of companies are starting to go through and do is stock exchange. So to go through and offer stock options in the company will go through and provide a lot more buy-in essentially at the end of the day for your new hire, where they go through and they make sure that they're going to put their best foot forward to go through and make sure that the company does succeed, because if they succeed, their stock does go up and they're going to get more returns when they do that every single month. By doing things like that, you're going to go through and get buy-in from day one. I had that with a past employer, and it really went through and it really made people come together very quickly to go through and make sure that things were set up for a great success. Another thing that they've gone through, a lot of employers have started doing, is RRSPs and TFSAs to go through and make sure that people are saving for their future by staying in that role, and that makes them stay a little bit longer to go through and make sure that they do see those numbers growing every single year, because you're going through and you're seeing a complete value at that point as well. One of the conclusions that we did draw here is that Canadian companies really need to start treating and onboarding their employees with a little bit more care and guidance. When you go through and have somebody coming in new, if you take that little bit of time at the start of their onboarding, you're going to go through and see rewards that way, and making sure that they do stay a little bit longer. When you go through and you have them the tools to succeed, they will want to succeed and have a better chance of staying with you. You only get one first impression when you come to a new company, and going through and having a great leader and having great benefits will go through and provide that a long way. People looking to do more work, more background work for the companies that they're going to be applying for, that can't be helped anymore. With everybody having Google and Glassdoor and everything like this at their fingertips, people are going to do a lot of research before applying for a role to make sure it's the right fit for them, because at the end of the day, most people do want to stay at a company a little bit longer, but unfortunately there are some factors that do go through and that make the people want to jump ship. So things like Glassdoor, Google My Business has only made it a little bit easier to go through and see what's going on in the company day to day. And best and most cost efficient way to keep a new hire is to go through that year and provide a little bit more benefits from the start. By going through and having this small cost every single year to your bottom line of a company, you're going to go through and see huge dividends at the end of the day to keep and retain your employees. Thank you very much.